Now we are joined by Brendan Steinhauser of the Alliance for Secure, CEO. This is for Secure AI. He is the Chief Executive Officer, also of the Steinhauser Strategies Partner Group. Thank you, Brendan, for joining us to dive into artificial intelligence. We had Warren Buffett on Saturday stating how exciting this is, but how scary the AI idea is because it can make decisions for itself. It can run a number of different things that might change our society. What say you as an expert in the artificial intelligence realm?
Yeah, it really is sort of like a number of other tools. It can be a tool for good, it can be a tool that's neutral or for bad. And so I think that while AI offers a lot of promises, it offers a lot of potential cures for diseases, untold wealth that can be created, advances in technology and science and mathematics. It could also, if misused or if we cannot align it to human values, it could lead to catastrophic outcomes for humanity. So it's really a double-edged sword, and it's something we have to lead on as the United States. We have to dominate in the artificial intelligence marketplace commercially, but we have to be very careful that we don't create something that ends up being a catastrophe for all of humanity.
Brendan, how do you align it to that somehow rational human thinking? We've seen some of this technology happening with self-driving cars, with what Elon Musk has worked on at Tesla or even Google, as especially on the West Coast. I'm sure people have seen those cars that go around and take the video and photo footage for you so you can have Google Maps among other technologies. But what comes to mind for me as someone who's somewhat green on this, I'm somewhat of a novice on artificial intelligence, I start to think iRobot, where it's well-intentioned and then all of a sudden the robot, the artificial intelligence starts thinking for itself, and to protect the humans, it then starts eliminating the humans to protect them from themselves. So how do you counter what could be a very dark age when it comes to these advancements in technologies?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of the most important questions that humanity has faced since the dawn of civilization. It's the most important question we will face in the next couple of years, because many people believe that we are entering this new phase of artificial general intelligence, or even a super intelligence, in the next 2 to 3 years. You're going to hear more and more about these things in the next few months and in the next year or two. And so it's rapidly advancing. So the way that you prevent that nightmarish scenario is through solving the alignment problem, which is a very difficult problem that industry leaders and outside experts say we have not solved. And very few people are actually optimistic that we can solve the alignment problem, to guarantee that AI is controlled by humans, to guarantee that it's aligned with our values and that we always have control over it. AI is something that is not programmed to do things. It's something that is grown. It's trained on massive amounts of data. We don't fully understand how it works, how it actually gets from the inputs to the outputs. And so it's by definition kind of frightening. And so until we solve the alignment problem, there could be a nightmare scenario like iRobot. And it's funny because a lot of people do bring up science fiction movies and novels. And, I would actually say that's one that kind of hits the closest to home when you look at what Tesla's developing with Optimus, and it's going to be powered by Grok. I mean, we are seeing the advancement of robotics along with AI. And so there are some real concerns about that. And I think, whether or not AI decides to eliminate human beings, it may or may not do that. That's a real scenario that could happen. But I think it's as likely, or even more likely, that AI ends up trying to control humanity, tries to take over control, at first subtly, at first in a very incremental way, but then at some day we wake up and we realize that we've either ceded control or we've lost control to AI. That's the scenario that I think keeps up experts at night.
And specifically into that topic with the science fiction movies, I think of Skynet as well with Terminator. Is that more from a willingness of Americans, let's say out of convenience? For example, you can order the Uber to go get you some fast food instead of either making it yourself or just getting up into your car from your home, your apartment, to go grab that yourself through the fast food line. Is it really a willingness for comfort that would lead to that? Or is it something that we're putting all of these things well-intentioned into place and then the artificial intelligence just getting rapidly ahead of even what we saw in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think my fear is that it's both. We are ceding control volitionally. We're basically giving control to more and more computer systems, to AI in particular. At the same time, it's getting smarter and smarter and faster and faster. And so we're probably just a couple of years away from AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it can plan and plot and execute plans, not only things that we're telling it to do, but it can figure out the best way that it wants to pursue its own interest. And so it's going to be so much smarter than us at some point. And again, nobody knows for sure, but many experts, in fact, most experts are saying it's going to be here within 2 to 3 years. It's moving so fast, so rapidly. It's going to get to a point where it's thinking so much faster than us, and it's in a way where we can't even keep up with the speed at which it's thinking. And it's almost like, you could almost expect it to go down a path that we're not expecting, right? The path that is least expected in order to take control. And again, I know this does sound like science fiction, but a lot of us are saying what was science fiction 10 or 20 or 30 years ago is actually becoming science. When you look at what's happening in the labs, and one of the labs, Anthropic, has been releasing some of its reports, some of the testing that it's doing of all the different models, not only at Anthropic, but other models. They're actually showing where AIs that are, for all considerations today, not that smart compared to where they're going to be tomorrow. They're already doing things like blackmailing, lying, deceiving, threatening human beings in these kind of test scenarios. And so it's really scary when you think about, okay, this is just sort of baby AI. What happens when we have AI very soon that is a PhD in literally every subject known to man?
And there seems to be some hope as well, even with the dark realities that come with this technology. We have Vice President J.D. Vance just several months ago visiting Paris, France, in this AI summit and speaking to the benefits of what can be on the horizon while being aware of those technologies that might advance slightly too quickly. What do you anticipate today from President Trump's comments to come roughly in 20 minutes at this AI summit?
Yeah, I think the president is going to obviously talk about his AI action plan, which I have read and honestly looks really good overall in terms of, the United States leading in AI development. He talks in the plan about protecting our critical infrastructure from adversaries, making sure that we're using AI to protect ourselves from cyber attacks. I think we need to develop offensive capabilities as well. I expect him to talk about innovation and leadership. But I also hope that he talks about things like preventing our adversaries from developing advanced AI, preventing China in particular from getting access to these really powerful semiconductor chips, which, by the way, most of those are manufactured in Taiwan, which China has its sights set on. And so I hope to see the president talk about that. One thing we need to do is make sure that we're not allowing China to get these powerful chips like the H20s that NVIDIA is now able to sell to China. So we need to reverse that policy. I hope the president goes in that direction. But I think you're going to hear him talk a lot about American leadership and about preventing our adversaries from obtaining powerful systems. Because I think he does understand and does get the fact that if our adversaries have this technology, if they beat us to something that is far more powerful than we have today, we could be in a real sticky situation.
Huge foreign policy implications, and perhaps that will be something he discusses with Premier Xi Jinping when he travels to China, that date forthcoming from the White House scheduler. But what else can we see here, Brendan, when it comes to government regulation over this? Do you see it being more of a government-run situation with artificial intelligence, or will private business really open the way, as we've seen from Tesla to Google to countless other companies working on all of these technologies?
Yeah, I would really like to see the frontier labs. So that's OpenAI, Google DeepMind, xAI, and Anthropic. I would like to see them do safety and security measures on their own, things that they should do to protect their own intellectual property, to prevent it from getting into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, for example. There's a lot that they can do just using their own security. They need to beef up information security, physical security. They need to have different fail-safes in place so that if one security measure fails, there's other layers of protection beyond that. They need to beef up their research on alignment, this problem I talked about earlier, to make sure that AI is aligned with human values. We're underfunding that as an industry. We need to see more of that. They need to bring in outside experts to test these models, to evaluate these models. I think there's a lot that the private sector can do to lead and to develop this technology in a safe and secure way. And I frankly think it's in their own interest to do that. because if they do develop something that's extremely dangerous, if there are any indications that we could lose control over these systems, then I think that's exactly when the federal government is going to step in and take it over. And some people are advocating for that as sort of Manhattan Project type approach. Others are really worried about that. I have personal concerns about, big tech and big government getting together and using artificial intelligence to collect lots of data, to do massive surveillance on American citizens, and do something that could really take away our liberty. So I really hope and pray that the leaders in big tech do the right thing. I think it's in their self-interest. I think it's in the interest of all of humanity, frankly, that they do that. But there's always got to be that backup plan. And I think the backup plan is smart, narrow, targeted regulation.
And we've seen some of that in the last 20 or so years, whether it be the Patriot Act, for example, or even what happened to President Trump being thrown off of then Twitter, then Facebook. But now some of those CEOs in the tech world seem to want to play ball. And that's a good thing because it's a win-win for free speech. Before we part ways, Brendan, how do you see this affecting, I guess, the dignity of work? Because as a result of all these technologies, just like the turn of the century going from the 1800s to the 1900s, some jobs eliminated as a result, thanks to these advancements in technologies.
Yeah, there are a lot of CEOs of big companies in this country who are sounding the alarm about this and saying we could be facing unemployment rates of 10% or 12% or maybe even 20% in the next few years. And that would be a huge problem for the United States if we are not able to transition, do this AI transition in a way that's good for workers. If we don't put American workers first, not only is that bad for workers, that's bad for our economy. It creates more social inequality. It allows more concentration of power and wealth in big tech. You could have things like riots in the streets and political and economic instability that could be really dangerous politically and economically. So I do worry about that. And I think that one thing JD Vance, Vice President Vance said in Paris was we need to put American workers first. And I think the president has that in his plan, and he'll say that probably here in a few minutes as well. I think that's really critical. We have to take care of American workers. AI has to be a tool that augments American workers, that supports us, that creates wealth, and make sure that the wealth is not concentrated in the hands of the few. And so I think we need some really good ideas on that. We need some smart public policy on that. And I hope that we'll hear that from the president today and from his team going forward. And I think that we will.
As an expert on this, do you foresee any troubles if, let's just say hypothetically, we know there's legislation being discussed and out there against this, but a central bank digital currency, if that were to get into the hands of AI, could that cause problems? I just see something down the road like mass inflation to mass starvation as a result of people not even able to acquire assets.
Yeah, that's a very scary proposition. I think that's something that a lot of people are talking more about. And I think it goes back to that basic principle of, ceding control to these systems, to AI. I think that can be very dangerous. I was talking to a retired Air Force colonel about this the other day, and he was involved in a bit of the command and control related to nuclear weapons. And we were talking about the danger of ceding control over nuclear weapons, and that is being discussed in some circles. Ceding that control to AI. Now that would be a very frightening proposition. So whether it's finance or it's the military, I think we have to be very careful as we go forward in this kind of brave new world of advanced AI.
Brendan Steinhauser, the Alliance for Secure AI CEO, also Steinhauser Strategies partner. Thank you for joining us and sharing this in-depth information. We look forward to having you again on Right Side Broadcasting Network.